What's up, guys? It's KB. Make sure you subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel. Click the bell icon down below so you don't miss a single video from us. And thanks for tuning in to another video from Underground Sports Philadelphia. Now let's get into it.
Philadelphia, baby, you're gonna love it. Best sports fans in the world. Actually, the worst, but that's what makes them the best.
Welcome back to Top Bins, the show bringing you all the action from the Premier League and SerieA, England and Italy. I am your host, Matt, joined by my co-host, Dom. Dom, how are you?
What's going on, man? I'm good. How we doing? Fresh back from Italy, huh?
Fresh back, fresh off the boat, fresh off the plane. Less than, I don't know, like 12 hours since re-entering the country. And we're just back. Sorry, 24 hours. It has not been 12 hours. In my mind, I'm still 6 hours ahead. Definitely feeling a little more jet laggy today in terms of overall feeling and tiredness, but persevering through because we got to record today because Dom's got other stuff going on in his life. That's the way summers go. You got a lot to do in only like 10 weeks to do it. But it was great. Enjoyed Italy immensely. It was very cool. I'm sure we can talk about that maybe later in the show if we find the time. But you know, we were just saying before we got on that unfortunately there's not a ton going on in either England or Italy at the moment. There are rumors and things like that, some confirmed transfers, some stuff that happened while I was away that we can maybe retouch. But you know, in general, I think this is always a little bit of a tough spot when you're looking to be talking about or writing about or discussing either the Premier League or SerieA because signings haven't been made across the board for everyone yet. You know, some clubs have probably, like Arsenal, have probably gotten most, if not all, of their signings done. So we know what that team is most likely going to look like for the season. But there are a lot of teams that, like Chelsea or Manchester United, that really haven't done a lot of the transfer business that we expect them to complete. And so how can you possibly kind of pontificate about what they're going to be this season when it still feels like a squad that's in flux? And I think one place that I really noticed that state of transition is in Italy. And it's something I think we've talked about all summer that, you know, I couldn't tell you who's going to win SerieA in this season coming up. I'm not sure who will be sitting here this time next summer talking about as Scudetto champions. By the way, I was in Naples, and I got to tell you, you have to try very hard to not be keenly aware that Napoli won the title this past season. Everywhere you look, there is a sign with like a big like Italian badge with 3 on it.
Campioni.
The Campioni everywhere. And on all the side streets, there are these banners across with like the individual player, like it's like the squad lineup before the game going down the street. Big
Is there a graveyard still of all of the opponents?
Couldn't find the graveyard. Didn't have time. If we had maybe more time, I would try to track that down. But yeah, it is hard to escape the fact that they just won the title. And then that's not even like the apartments that have their entire balconies with a banner like with Campioni. So I don't know who's going to be having that celebration next summer, and I'm almost certain that they will not be having it like people in Napoli did. But you know, I think it really is a huge question mark for me, and something I want to talk about tonight is I think every team in Italy has a big question. Some of them have multiple big questions coming into this season, coming into training camp now as we get into kind of the heat of the summer. You know, teams are already starting to do their preseason training, whether that's their summer tours where they go to America or Asia, wherever it is they're headed, or, you know, they're doing I know some teams like Liverpool are doing their preseason tour in like Germany already, like for just the players, for fitness, stuff like that's normally when you see, you know, guys returning from, you know, either international duty, if they're like U23 players, or their holidays, things like that. And I just think that every team in Italy has at least one big question. At least one. You know, for Napoli, it's pretty simple. You know, you lose Kim Min-jae, and you've lost Spalletti. You've lost your sporting director. You know, key components to a title win last year. And Osimhen, I think, will stay. I would actually be surprised at this point if Osimhen leaves, just because I think there's really only one place that I think he could go, and that's PSG. And I just don't know that they're going to spend what it would take to get him out of Naples. So that's obviously a strong suit for them. But again, tons of question marks there about, how stable that situation might be. Who honestly knows? With Juventus, they have budget concerns. They're losing players. Vlahovic and Chiesa could be out the door. They've tried to already piece together some signings, but it's not totally clear, where they're headed. They're apparently interested in getting Lukaku now. And
very weird.
of course, Inter as well. They've had their own financial issues, and they've also had their own question marks about transfers. They thought they were getting Lukaku. Now they're going to have to pivot to someone else. Balogun has been, I think, a name to maybe keep an eye on for Inter. That would be very, very interesting. For Milan, it's about, can they spend any money beyond what they've spent, because they just don't seem to have a ton of it, and that's, again, a common cause with a lot of Italian teams. They're going to have to rebound from what was a disappointing season, I think, overall, just in terms of I think from front to back, just not what you would hope for and expected. Atalanta are trying to not lose Demiral and Holland, two players that I think they're hoping to be back next year. It seems like both of them could be gone. They're setting a really big price tag on Rasmus, as Manchester United are trying to get him.
Mm-hmm.
And then you look at a team like, say, Fiorentina or Roma, two teams that I think are really trying to build to be in, those title conversations, that are trying to be in those circles. And they have a lot of question marks, as they typically do. And then Lazio, who lose Sergej Milinkovic-Savic to Saudi Arabia, could potentially lose Immobile, who was not at his best last season. Everywhere you look, there's questions. No one is coming through. No one is looking to me like a stable, man, they're just really building on the next thing, and I think they're going to be a juggernaut this year.
The financial implications that a few teams in Italy are dealing with, are kind of concerning, right? Like, it seems like, I don't know how many years in a row now the Scudetto champion has not convincingly done anything to improve their squad.
It would be the fourth, because it was Juventus, Inter, Milan, and now Napoli, the last year.
So there hasn't been a title defense, a successful title defense, and bringing in the proper reinforcements to continue being, that top team. I mean, hell, Milan won the league last year, and like you said, it was very disappointing where they ended in the season. Still made Champions League, but it's definitely a disappointment in the eyes of all the Milan fans. I mean, Inter won it 2 years ago. I think they finished third. So, it's not up to par for these teams. But I mean, I haven't seen anything with Lazio, so that's kind of concerning for me. The most activity I've seen is by Roma. Roma seems to be attracting everybody. People that are linked with other teams in SerieA, and then they end up choosing Roma. It seems like they're trying to make a serious push to be a top 2 team and compete for a Scudetto next year. Obviously, very, very early prediction, but nobody's been very convincing. I mean, Milan's probably been right behind Roma with how they've been signing players. They brought in a few people. We'll talk about that a little bit later on in the show. So, I mean, who knows? It's going to be interesting. I think that this will lead to parity again in the season. There's not going to be one team that really stands out and will have a season like Napoli. I think it's going to be a very close and hard fought team, or season between 3, 4, 5 teams. You mentioned Fiorentina; they're on the up. Lazio is looking to stay consistent now. The fact that they had such a successful season. We talk about Roma, and then obviously you get guys like Inter and Juventus that are going to be in the mix. Atalanta may fall out of that mix if they happen to end up making this sale for Højlund. I mean, if a team like Manchester United or someone else presents an offer they can't refuse, I mean, you kind of have to take it, right? Just try to see who you can sign and bring in.
That is Atalanta's model too, is that they buy players like Højlund and sell them on. That they have a very clear direction that they build and grow towards. Roma is interesting too that you brought up, because they have gotten a lot of early transfer business done. I don't know if it's completely done. I think they're still looking for a striking option. Tammy Abraham's future's not totally settled, and obviously has an injury now, which is tough. So they're going to need to figure out kind of a pathway there. I would say that's probably the last piece missing for them. But almost every team in Europe is looking every summer, for a forward option. Everyone's pretty much always looking to find someone that can get them goals. It's most sought after position. But yeah, they've already got Aouar, Ndicka, Diego Llorente, Rasmus Christensen in. Those aren't like the sexiest of sexy names, but they are names. They are transfers that they've got in that can go to have a full preseason with the team. That is definitely an important piece, and I think often gets overlooked. And listen, like largely speaking, this could be a team that has like a good amount of consistency from the previous season. They're maybe not going to be losing a lot of big stars like some other Italian clubs are going to do. You look at pretty much every other top 6 club, they're likely losing or already have lost a regular starter. Inter's going to lose Onana to Manchester United, right? They may not have Lukaku back, who wasn't necessarily a key figure for them last year, but did provide, especially I would say the last 2 months of the season, a good boost to that team. Milan have lost Sandro Tonali. Juventus are likely losing, Vlahovic, Chiesa.
Quadrado.
They're losing Quadrado. Like, everywhere you look at the top of Italy, you see
even a guy like McKinney.
Yeah, McKinney, you losing Milinkovic-Savic, from Lazio. Like everywhere you look, you're losing players. Roma don't seem likely to be doing that. It doesn't seem like they're going to be missing maybe some of their big stars, at least due to transfers or anything. It's just about health. So Roma's, I think, a good option for maybe if you're looking for prediction-wise. Stability is nice. Stability is a nice thing. Being able to build on that and hope for like consistent improvement, I don't think that's a bad bet to make at all. But again, it's not necessarily there's no right or wrong way. Napoli, we're not on anyone's radar this past season coming in for a title because of the instability, because of their perceived transition year that it was going to be, where they had sold off some key players left. And it felt like they were sort of building towards this season, right, or the following year. And they ended up having, one of the best Italian seasons that we've seen, especially in recent times. So, it just goes to show there's no formula for it. But I think in general, having that stability is a good thing. And a lot of Italian clubs don't have that right now. They don't have the roster stability or the organizational stability that you would hope for. Yeah.
So where do you think Lukaku ends up going? We mentioned that, he's got this thing going on with Inter and Juventus is interested in him now. Like what's going on here? What's going on here?
It's where he ends up is a great question, and I think is one of the questions of the summer. And I think there's kind of a striker carousel around Europe that I have to imagine starts getting turned over the next few weeks, because I just can't imagine Bayern, right, like not wanting to have their established number 9 coming into the season. I think they want whoever it is. I think whether it's Kane, whoever, they want that player in, I think, in the next 2 weeks. I really do. I just don't, doesn't feel like a team that maybe wants to be waiting till late August and wrapping up a deal. It seems like either get the guy or move on, whatever. Once, some of those strikers start moving, then I think you kind of just see the bigger picture turning, like someone like Dusan Vlahovic, right, also starts to move, which allows Lukaku to move, which allows maybe João Felix to move. There's all these guys that are looking for homes, I think, or changes in scenery that we just don't have yet. We don't have maybe the space, or there's no pressure yet really necessarily to get the deal done right now. For Lukaku, it's bizarre. It really felt like he was just going to be returning to Inter, and it made a lot of sense, I think, for everyone involved. For Inter, you're getting a reliable player and goal scorer that, again, has a good partnership with Lautaro. I think has won there. Like, he's had success with this club. For Lukaku, it seems like it's a good fit for him. It seems like he's played his best playing performances over the last 4 seasons have pretty much been with Inter and nowhere else. He really has not performed well at any other club. You'd have to really go back to his Everton times for when he was really dominant, league goal scoring striker. He was very, very good. And outside of that, it's only been Inter. And I don't understand his like switch here. He's such an interesting and I don't want to call him volatile, but he just seems so like I don't know if it's our perception of him, just what gets leaked to the media and things like that. But it does seem like he just kind of flip flops sometimes with this with loyalties or with where he wants to go, his direction, and even the fans now have kind of said like they put out the statement like don't return, don't kiss the badge or whatever, and all this. It seems like a very ugly and public breakup. So yeah, it seems
the
like
ultras
Juventus
are always like that.
It seems like Juventus are getting involved. He's not exactly cheap either. He's $40 million. Juventus are under some pressure, I think, to balance out the books a little bit. I don't know that they necessarily have the money to go out and do that without maybe making some other moves as well.
They need to convince the team to buy Vlahovic before any of that happens, I feel like.
Which, again, Vlahovic is not going to come cheap to whoever's buying him either. Like it's
Well, you talk about Kane and the Kane and Bayern issue. I mean, if Bayern don't get Kane, do you think that Vlahovic is an option for them? Do you think he fits in Munich?
I mean, he could. I don't think he's a perfect fit because I think ideally Thomas Tuchel would want someone that can like play with the ball, and that is not Vlahovic's strength. He's like Vlahovic is pretty much squarely a like penalty box striker. Like he's not good with the ball. He's not good carrying the ball. He's not good at receiving it, but he can score goals, like for sure. Like I don't question his finishing ability or like his touch, but I think I don't see that as like a perfect fit.
I know what you're talking about.
And Vlahovic is interesting, and I'm not sure that Lukaku and Vlahovic and Chiesa is an interesting attack to be going into this season with. Juventus, I have a lot of questions for. Paul Pogba's future is uncertain too. Saudi Arabia has been hoovering up lots of high-profile players. I think Paul Pogba has been at least rumored to be one of these other players that could potentially be on his way. Who knows? But for Lukaku, yeah, I mean, it feels like without Juventus, I really don't know where he goes.
Yeah.
I can't see him staying at Chelsea. I don't know that any English club is necessarily interested in him. I'm not sure who. Maybe Aston Villa would go for Lukaku, but that just seems like not in line with how they've sort of run the team over the last 6-7 months. It seems like Unai Emery has a very clear idea, and I don't know that Lukaku, and they have Ollie Watkins, so why would they do that? Yeah, it's just there's everywhere you look, it just doesn't feel like there's a great option for Lukaku. So I am really curious to see in September who Lukaku is playing for, because it's not totally clear to me at the moment.
Yeah, obviously I think he belongs in Italy. I don't know if he'd be so fickle to sign for Milan. I don't know if I'm too keen on that. They've been rumored with other strikers anyway, so it's weird. I don't see Allegri using a 2-striker set. He tends to like one guy up top. Normally that's a target man, which Vlahovic can provide. Lukaku does the same thing. And if they can cash in on Dusan, I mean, you might as well bring in a guy of similar, if not better quality, if he's motivated. When you see Lukaku in Italy motivated, it's one of the top number 9s, in Europe. But then more times than not, you get the Lukaku where it's the Timberland boots on his feet meme, and
Lukaku reminds me a lot. Do you remember Hoodie Melo? Or Olympic Carmelo?
Yeah.
He reminds me so much of Carmelo Anthony in the NBA in that he has these traits and abilities that are so impressive, really amazing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, man, if this guy could just put it together, he would be really special. And just it never felt like it fully clicked, but there's always this mythical part of him.
Yeah, there's a cult following for
this cult following, and there's always this when Carmelo Anthony would play for Team USA at the Olympics, he looked amazing.
Incredible.
And listen, Everyone did, by the way, when you play on Team USA, because you're pounding competition. You're playing with 14 of the best basketball players to ever play the game.
Darren Williams looked like
and then there was also
top
Hoodie,
10.
There was Hoodie Melo, and it was like when Carmelo would like have a hoodie on and just be kind of shooting around.
Summer workout, open run
at, like,
Melo.
Rucker Park or something. Like it was like that was like this mythical place that you could get to. And it's the same with Lukaku, it feels like sometimes. He doesn't have quite the same thing. I guess it's like Belgium Lukaku. Like when he's playing for the national team, he looks a lot of times better. But he, there's something with him that just it has never worked properly. We've seen like stops and starts, but he's never been a guy that I think has really put it together in a complete way and like over the course of more than just 1 year. He had that great season with Inter when they win the title. He was fantastic. He was worthy of a lot of the praise that he got, and then makes that move to Chelsea. And I don't want to call it disastrous, but it has certainly not worked out for anyone involved.
Would you say that his time at Manchester United was successful?
No. I think he was.
They won trophies.
He was an average striker there. He was not what they bought him to be coming off of Everton.
Well, I mean, Zlatan was the main guy. It was Zlatan and right? Did they have?
They bought Lukaku before Zlatan.
Was Van Persie playing alongside him, or was Van Persie going by then? It's kind of
Persie
cloudy in my.
That was like the transition between the two. Lukaku was like not. He was not terrible for Manchester United, but he was not at all like he did not recapture what he was at Everton. Upon his move, he was like an average to above average striker at his time there, but they spent a pretty good amount of money on him, and they never really recouped that. And then it was kind of an ugly exit. He like sat out of training. That was when he went to Anderlecht to train, rather than go back with Manchester United because he just so badly did not want to be back there. So, yeah, it did not end positively in the end there, but. We'll see. We'll see where Lukaku ends up. Again, just does not have a ton of options outside of Chelsea, Juventus. I really, I don't know who's picking up the tab there at all. Speaking of Chelsea, not great news. Wesley Fofana injured his ACL. Seems like he could be missing a large chunk of this season, which sucks because we already saw him get a really bad leg break injury 2 summers ago in a preseason game. Which was really, I remember being a very dirty tackle, just like totally out of pocket for a preseason game. So could be another season really disrupted by injury for him, which sucks on a personal level because, when he was young and coming up, he really looked like he could be something special, and you hope that injuries don't take, that early part of his career away and potentially disrupt what could be a fantastic career. But it does, it does leave that Colwill, a player that we highlighted on our 5 players to watch episode, someone that has been linked with moves to Brighton and to Liverpool and a few other top Premier League clubs, or just staying at Chelsea, which is always an option, of course. It does make his pathway even more clear already. Chelsea were not particularly deep at center back. This does make it, in my mind, at least more clear that Colwell's probably staying at Chelsea this summer. I just think they want to hang on to him anyway. They have to ask for a big price for any English club trying to buy him. And so I can't imagine with Fofana potentially being out for a long period that they're moving on from Colwill and be willing to really thin themselves out even more.
Yeah, sucks for Fofana, man. Like you said, like he had so much promise. I mean, we just hope that when he comes back from this injury, he can try and regain some form. I mean, tough break for Chelsea now. We'll see how it folds out.
And just looking at some transfer stuff, we did finally Declan Rice officially to Arsenal. It took a little bit of extra time, I guess, to figure out how the money was being paid. Tom is his Arsenal jersey, I think, in camaraderie. And Urian Timber, of course, as well, also going to Arsenal. So
crazy signings, man.
They've gotten some big signings in the door already this summer, and it doesn't feel like there's a ton left for them to do. I think maybe some rotational guys might be an option for them, but when you've added Havertz and Rice and Timber to the mix, I think that those are all really strong and aggressive signings. They've paid big prices. Declan Rice was a British transfer record, so listen, that's going to come with its own expectation. They are no longer, whether they like it or not, they're no longer the plucky team. They are the team that is coming into the season with the expectation to win a title. I think, and that comes with different criticisms and a different lens of focus. Again, whether that's fair or not, that is going to be that is going to be what they receive this year. When you spend the money that they have, people are going to expect you to now really go out there and perform well in the Champions League and be in the title race again. So that is the key for Arsenal.
I mean, you see the pool that Arsenal have and the kind of level of some of the signings. They have 3 big name marquee like signings, and it's indicative of a team that is looking to make that push for a title. I mean, they're in position to do it. They stayed the top of the league for most of the season last year, and then City comes and takes it away from them in the end. But they've signed their big guys. A guy like Havertz can play striker. He can play the number 10. So he's a very versatile player for them. Declan Rice is huge for them. I think he's so much more than defensive midfielder. He can also push forward and add an extra dimension to Arteta's attack. And I'm a fan of Timber. I think he's a very quality center back that allows Arsenal to have a solid rotation of guys. They've even signed guys like Reece Nelson. They kept Reece in the club, and he's been a quality rotational piece. Now that they can kind of put him in place of either Martinelli or Saka if they need it, it's nice. If they're looking to make any other signings, maybe in my opinion, look at a right back. I mean, somebody to rotate with Ben White. And that's really all that I can think of. Like Arsenal, seems to be very complete. It seems to be coming full circle with them. From the stuff I've seen online, it looks like the vibes are good in the locker room and stuff right now. Everybody's welcoming these guys pretty quickly. They're all laughing and joking already. So it seems to be positive in the camp.
Yeah, I think Tomiyasu is really their right back.
Oh yeah, I forgot about him.
He can play across. Well, forgot about him because he was injured for the second half of the season, and it was kind of an underrated part of the reason I think why they maybe fell off a little bit, by not having him available as kind of insurance there. But we'll talk a little bit too about Pulisic in Milan now officially. Of course, it was heavily rumored even before I was on my way abroad. But listen. It's a signing, that's for sure. It is a transfer that happened that he will now be playing at least 20 to 26 games for Milan over the course of this season. I don't think it's a terrible signing. I think it's pretty low risk. I don't think you're paying a ton of money for a guy that has had success in Europe. It hasn't been startling success, but he has had some good seasons under his belt, and I think if he gets to a place where he can get regular playing time, if he can stay healthy, this is a guy that can turn out a good signing for you. And I think the price that they got him at is a pretty good deal, for what they could get. Because this is a guy that could definitely he could touch double-figure goals, and he could do that.
I mean, he's never done it in his career. He's gotten close a few times, I'm pretty sure, but he's a guy that offers much more than just goal scoring. He's the guy they brought in to replace Brahim, right? So he's most likely going to be asked to do 2 things for the team, and that's either play as a number 10 or as a right winger. And, occasionally when squads are being rotated, he'll be Leao's backup, all right? He can be utilized on the left as well. So it's really how well does he get on there? Is he setting up teammates? Is he as much as you say he could do double-digit goals, he could do double-digit assists, right? He could be the guy to create and set things up. There's been some clips from training that look pretty good. He looks to be, enjoying himself and, being creative out there, not afraid to take a risk, at a new team already in training. So that bodes well, I guess, for his confidence, maybe, especially if everybody's enjoying him around. So Milan also signing, anything about this Teji Reinders guy, or I don't know how to Reinders, he's like a defensive mid from AZ Akmar.
It's AZ.
AZ, excuse me.
No, I do not.
Yeah, I know nothing about him. Well,
that is an awesome.
Milan signed a defensive midfielder. Have no idea who he is. I don't know, man. It's very interesting. But
did they officially sign him, or is this again something?
This is one. Yes. He left medical at Milanello either today or yesterday. It was one of those two. My Twitch chat is killing me for that one right there. Saying Wara fan.
Because sometimes you get a little carried away with the Twitter feed, and
Yeah. Listen, there's also rumors that they're in advanced talks to sign Mehdi Taremi, but I don't think it's completely solidified yet.
I did see the Taremi links. He's linked with a few SerieA clubs.
Yeah,
he's pretty good. Like, I like Taremi. That's a Champions League quality player.
Mm-hmm.
That's done well over the last few years in Porto. Like, I think he's not a bad signing at all. I think Inter have also been. Milan and Inter are linked to like the same guys
everybody.
all the time.
You mentioned Balogun. That's another guy that we talked about.
It is. It's always a time. You can always expect when someone is linked to one of them that they will invariably by tomorrow at the very least be linked. The other club will be linked to them.
Yeah, and the last one that Milan is in the rumor mill still is that Valencia kind of stalling talks with Musa. I don't know. I think I saw that this morning. Are there any updates to that? Or
I think Fulham are potentially getting involved with Musa, and there was I think another club. Like I think they're trying to stretch the figure as much as they can.
Mm-hmm.
That seems like the hang up there. It doesn't seem like he'll be a Valencia player next season. It's just not totally clear where he'll be playing exactly. It's pretty much he'll be either in the Premier League or SerieA, it seems. So we got that going for us. We'll at least be able to keep our eyes on Eunice.
What do you think of the Ruben Loftus-Cheek signing? I forget if we talked about this before you left for Italy or not.
I think we did, and because I remember talking about in his younger days when he was
we did talk about it.
Chelsea.
Yeah,
that it was truly sometimes hard to tell the difference between him and Hazard. And that is unfortunately not been the case since his injury. But again, you're getting is a very low risk deal, and I think at worst he's still like just a guy that can rotate and play minutes, and it's not gonna like kill you. But
hey, listen,
lost a little bit of that athleticism.
Most Chelsea players that come to Milan end up having a pretty successful season. So unless you count Fernando Torres, we're not going to talk about that one. But
that was a little different. If he works out like Torres, it's gonna be tough. It's a tough beat. I'll
yeah.
Sergej Milinkovic-Savic, like we mentioned, is finally leaving Lazio. He's been linked away from there for the last 4 seasons every summer. He's supposed to have been moving on. He's actually finally going. It's now though to Saudi Arabia instead of Manchester United or Real Madrid or wherever else. Honestly, this is the one Saudi Arabia signing that's still kind of head scratcher for me. All the other guys kind of make sense. It's probably their last big contract. It's I get it. I mean, Ruben Neves is a little surprising, but it's okay, I get these guys, at the end of their career a little bit. You see that money, and it can be hard to kind of turn away. Milinkovic-Savic just feels you're just never escaping the allegations of just being a dunker. It's just it just kind of sucks because I really liked watching him play, and now I'll just never watch him play again. And I'll see
it's so funny.
Maybe at the Euros next summer, if he's with Serbia, I don't know.
It's so funny, the Super League kind of just falls apart, and then Saudi Arabia is you know what? Let's just make our own. Here we go. Let's just sign all these big players and get them to come over here by offering them ridiculous contracts. Did you see what was rumored, the rumored contract that was offered to Messi from Saudi Arabia?
Yeah, I did.
It was like in the billions.
Yeah.
Billions.
I think it was $200 million a year is what they offered him.
Yeah, I think it was like in total like $1.3 billion. Or
they already he has like some sponsorship deal with Saudi Arabia, like as like a country, and some sort of like tourism thing. And they were actually, I think, there's this whole beef now, and Messi's gonna cause like an international incident because he, obviously turned and ended up going to MLS, but I think there was some sort of wink deal that he was supposed to be going to Saudi Arabia as part of that deal with the league, and then didn't, and ends up coming to MLS. And part of that too is, again, he's going to be very heavily featured in the promotional stuff for the U.S. World Cup in 2026. That's going to be very like integral to his like campaign. And there was hopes that I think he would do sort of the same thing for Saudi Arabia because they're hoping to get the bid for 2030. So yeah, it's Saudi Arabia. They're splashing cash. I have no belief, honestly, in my heart that this is going to go anywhere though. I think people are like. Not that I don't think it's like the Chinese league that we had that like 2-year window where just Oscar was getting paid like
everybody.
Like it was just everyone was chasing bags. I remember Yannick Carrasco went there. He's one of the few players that has gone to one of these leagues and then returned and like still been able to play at like a top level.
Paulinho, Hulk did it. Yeah,
come back and.
He didn't come back. He didn't come back because he didn't.
Point. That was my point.
He went, because Hulk went to Russia and then went to China. Yeah, and then kind of just didn't. He went to Brazil, I think.
Yes.
So
where he has, I think.
Did Paulinho really come back?
Paulinho came back to Barcelona.
Oh yeah, he went to Barcelona. Yeah. He came back to Barcelona. Bear with me. Sorry.
Hulk has some like weird, totally like this is TLC shit, but
oh my god, yeah. Let's not get into his personal life.
Drama, right? Like I don't recall exactly what it was, but I remember being very bizarre.
It's the
There's like a sister-in-law.
I think there's some storylines that are found on some questionable websites that are actually actual reality in his life. So it's. That's yeah. That's all I really need to do.
Tell you, I mean, that dude is a powerful shot. That's all I'll say.
Like I like that one. I like that. Was this Cristiano Ronaldo quote about the Saudi league true? Was he saying like, oh, I'd never moved to the MLS? You see, like I moved to Saudi Arabia.
Incredibly vain.
All the players are coming
cowardly, here. So yes, it is. It is.
He was like, I would never go play in the MLS. Like, look, I came here and look at all the players coming here now. Like,
brother, they're not coming for you. They're coming because they're going to make $600,000 a week tax free. That's why they're going there. It's really not a secret.
Inter Miami. Messi has some pull. Inter Miami bringing Jordi Alba. He's coming to play for Miami.
It's
nice for the MLS.
MLS's rules are already weird and totally unclear. They have GAM and TAM and DPs, and
I think why I
hate
it.
Kind of a weird situation. I have no clue why Inter Miami is doing all this because they're still also paying for the Blaise Matuidi situation where they had to give up a pick and they got fined and all this stuff, and they were diminished on how much money they could spend on certain things. I have no clue how they're finding the money to do all this. Who knows?
Do you think Inter Miami tries to build like a throwback Barcelona squad together?
I mean, they're bringing the gang back together, at least in a very small way.
Apparently, there's rumors about Suarez and Iniesta.
Listen. I'll buy a ticket,
And then you drop like homegrown talents, sprinkle them in, and just teach them.
Watching Luis Suarez try to play, there's not a ton of like turf in MLS, but there is like more than there should be, which is zero. Watching Luis Suarez try and play on a turf field would be a horrifying thing. It's like those Russian dash cam videos where at some point there's going to be a car crash. It's just how bad. Like, is this going to be like that's kind of a funny car crash, or is this like I think I just watched someone die on YouTube car crash? Like And I that would be the way that I would feel about Luis Suarez playing in the MLS, because I'm sorry.
I would love the
he's not
drawing
good
back
for
and
it anymore.
forth. I would love the drawing back and forth. He'd body some like 23-year-old center back who's like 4 inches taller than him, and the guy gets in his face and he's like, you know who you're talking to, kind of deal, talking all this shit.
I think we have different ideas about Luis Suarez's play style. He is,
but then he's gonna dive.
He is the man who gets bodied.
He's going to dive, and
I have no.
You didn't let me finish. I was gonna say the center back, kind of gets in his face, touches his forehead, and Suarez throws himself on the ground. Yeah, bites him.
Yeah, we don't do that in America. You can't bite someone, but you could bring a gun and shoot someone.
You know what?
That would actually, I think that would endear himself to the front
maybe
of the crowd.
maybe it's a good thing Suarez doesn't come to the MLS, because he's got to watch his comments first time he gets into a row. He runs the risk of getting canceled in America right away. When they find out all the Patrice Evra situation and whatnot. So
yeah, I think he could definitely learn some cultural sensitivity. That would be a good thing for Luis Suarez. He definitely has, I think, probably still some maturing to do in that regard. It's going to be interesting. Lionel Messi supposed to be starting up over the next few weeks with Inter Miami. Yeah. So he has quite the job to do, because they're one of the worst teams I've ever seen in my life. They're truly awful. They're in the basement. So that, I think, Dom, is everything we have for this week for England and Italy, because, like we said, we're just waiting on some of these other transfers to wrap up, waiting on this Kane saga to kind of just find a conclusion, please, for the love of Christ. Let's just, folks, let's figure it out. Come on. But before you know, we're going to be back with season previews and things like that. We're like a month away from the season being back, which is exciting, but also very quick. We're coming up on it, so we'll start to piece together some previews and all those things, and hopefully have some more transfer news. We'll be back next week, of course, to bring that all to you. Dom, anything to say before we get out of here?
Yeah, I'm gonna plug my new podcast. So I finally have done it, guys. I've decided to stop talking about FIFA on this podcast. So Matt must be very happy about that one. I started a FIFA podcast on my own, or shall I call it a EAFC, because the FIFA brand is not with EA Sports anymore. So it's called Fut Boys. So we're gonna do weekly shows talking about the news and the grind, and when EAFC 24 comes out, it's going to be a much better show than right now. It's kind of a dead period. It's all like hype and expectations for the game to come. So, but yeah, if you're into the video game and you play Ultimate Team and you're interested in listening to a podcast about it, get some more info than maybe you may already know, tune in. I appreciate it. Aside from that, just follow me on Twitter. I changed my handle. It's not at Wash Lifestyle anymore. It's at a Hairy Ape FUT, a Hairy Ape Fut. So follow me on Twitter and look out for the podcast.
So EAFC, is this gonna are they gonna have all the licensing to teams? How is this gonna work? Okay. Yeah, they just did a big event in Amsterdam. It was so funny because they still have the rights to the Premier League and La Liga and SerieA. They even have UEFA rights, so they still have the Champions League and Europa League and all that kind of stuff. Basically they just don't have the FIFA brand. So all that they can't really do is the World Cup. They still have image rights with all the players. They still have licensing for all the serious leagues. They even have licensing rights to women's leagues. They're adding women into FUT, so you can play with men and women on the same team. So they've got women icons. So think about this. You can run an American team now that has Mia Hamm, Alex Morgan. You can take Landon Donovan, Christian Pulisic. You can take all of these American players now and just put it all together. Brady Chastain. If they don't got Brady Chastain,
I feel like they got them too, and Abby Wambach, maybe Carly Lloyd. That would be.
I'm not buying it, but I'm
there's some interesting stuff. One of the things is FIFA. The FIFA itself was a very restrictive entity on EA. You know, anything that they wanted to do promo wise, game wise, it had to be run by FIFA first.
Oh, I'm sure.
I think it was part of the deal. One of the content creator, Chew Boy, used to work for EA. He was on a podcast recently saying that he said like
EA like 10 years ago. Like,
yeah,
come on.
it's the same thing. It's always been like that, man.
Yeah, okay. I think that convenient excuse for why the game sucked and why it was just a money grab all the time.
Hell, it's even worse. It's worse of a money grab now. It's worse of a money grab now. But
it's not our fault.
It seems like they have a lot more positive change. That's kind of how I see it right now. They have a lot more freedom to do certain things. So, but one thing that is a little interesting is Pro Clubs is going to be full crossplay now. So it doesn't matter what console you're on, you can all play on the same Pro Clubs team. I'm trying to convince Nikolai. I'm gonna get the gang back together.
Yeah. Good luck. Good luck. Well, Dom, that sounds really exciting, and I'm very happy for you. We will be back next week to wrap up all the transfer talk, all the stuff about the offseason, everything you need to know. We will present it all for you. Until then, we will talk to you next time. See you.